Well, I mean, containers are not like packets of chocolates.
Yeah.
Coffee, so these are huge, things. And we are not talking about one or two. We are talking about 1,328 containers.
What?
Missing. I'm sure that even Houdini will find it very, very difficult to pull this trick. Houdini, of all people, will find it very, very difficult to pull this trick. 1,328 containers simply missing. How did they get lost? So who can disagree with the minister when he calls for full-scale investigation and measures to protect what is left of the containers? Nobody can disagree with the minister. Many questions have been raised about procurement by some of these state institutions. And these questions were not raised only yesterday. I mean, years ago, 10, 12 years ago, all the way up till now, we have heard stories about some state enterprises purchasing stationery which was supposed to last for more than 100 years. I mean, incredible. Clearly incredible, you understand. So again, I agree with the minister that some streamlining of procurement processes is important. Okay. Now, all of this is happening at a time when, especially in the power sector, the companies operating there have accumulated huge debts. I mean, if you talk about the independent power producers, for example, we owe them something like $2.3 billion. That's how much we owe them.
Yeah.
So the debts are all over the place. I mean, this new government is saddled with debt. It is suffering under the weight of debt. And then in the midst of all of this, 1,320 containers of material which can help the ECG to revamp itself. I mean, to assure ordinary people of regular supply of power and so on, is gone missing. What is this?
Before you continue, let me help you with this. You talked about the mounting debts that our power sector is faced with. The Africa Sustainable Energy Center, which is ASEC for short, it has apparently conducted a critical review of Ghana's energy sector in light of the 2025 budget presented by Finance Minister Dr. Kasila Toforsing. Now, the findings highlight alarming financial shortfalls, crippling debts, and structural inefficiencies that threaten the country's energy stability and economic growth. And it says Ghana's energy sector is under severe financial strain, with government spending on energy ballooning to 20.8 billion cedis in 2024. Despite efforts to stabilize the sector, the financing gap for 2025 is projected as 35 billion cedis, with an estimated total shortfall of 140 billion from 2023 to 2026. This unsustainable trajectory is diverting critical funds away from infrastructure and social services. Now, the financial distress extends to independent power producers to whom Ghana owes 1.73 billion cedis. The lack of a clear payment plan raises concerns of electricity reliability, as IPPs may be forced to cut back on power generation, exacerbating frequent outages and disrupting businesses. Meanwhile, the ECG faces its financial crisis with debt reaching 68 billion cedis. Inefficiencies in revenue collection, poor metering systems, and electricity theft have worsened ECG's liquidity issues, undermining efforts to sustain power supply.
Yeah.
To buttress the point you made earlier.
Exactly. And I mean, if you go into the past, you find some things which are extremely shocking, but which may still be, happening.
Yeah.
I recall doing a story when I used to be a reporter of the Ghanaian Times. ECG transformers broke down. There was a local company in Ghana, Ghanaian company, which could repair the transformers. The bosses of ECG at the time decided that no, the local company should not rewind whatever had to be rewound, and that they should send it to Nigeria. Okay. Now, you know, they sent the transformers to a church in Nigeria.
Huh?
Yes, a church. The Olumba Church.
To do what there?
To rewind. I mean, incredible. We actually shipped the transformers all the way to Nigeria to a church. Olumba Church. I remember the story very, very well.
Incredible.
You know, for the transformers to be wrong. When there was a local company here capable of repairing the transformers. Now, you'll be surprised. Of course, the church could not fix the transformers. So the transformers were never fixed. They never came back to Ghana, and we paid foreign exchange to the church. I mean, these are incredible things that happen. And the final analysis, it is the Ghanaian consumer who suffers, you know. Right now, there is talk about privatization of electricity. Of course, the trade unions, led by the Public Utility Workers Union, has raised serious objections, and the matter is still being seriously contested. I would wish that sometimes our leaders would stop and look back at some of the mistakes which were made and not repeat those mistakes. Because I know that aspects of ECG's work were privatized. You know that. They were privatized in the late 1980s. Revenue collection, for example, was privatized and given to the Electricity Company of France. And the result was a complete disaster. Complete disaster. You understand? Not just that. Water supply. We privatized water supply. Also, I think in the 1990s and so on. And brought in Aqua Vitan's Rand of South Africa. It was a total disaster. To the extent that we had to cancel the agreement later and so on. So, our leaders, especially in the energy sector, government, ought to realize by now that privatization is not a magic wand. It doesn't always resolve problems, you know. And to deal with all the problems which confront us, including I'm not sure whether to say the loss, because this may still be recovered.
Yes.
So the strange circumstances under which we have lost 1,328 containers. I think we need to deal with this matter.
And each container apparently will cost us about $500,000.
Yeah.
Metering systems, cables, anything electricity related, close to $500,000.
So
and if you multiply that by 1,326,
you're talking about something in the region of
700 and something million.
Yeah.
US dollars.
US dollars.
What?
That's how much is missing.
It's gone.
Kwesi, for me, this is a very simple matter.
Yes.
All shipment to ECG is consigned to ECG.
Yeah.
All the containers at the port, immediately get to the port, it gets to the hands of ECG. Technically. Now, when you go to the port, before a container moves from one terminal to the other, even when you ship your own car, just see the kind of processes it goes through, the signings that have to go through before a container, your own car, is moved from one terminal to the other. We are being told that 1,328 containers miraculously moved from one terminal, went through all the custom processes. Don't forget that it is consigned to ECG. So there's no way the container can move without the consent of ECG.
But it has moved now.
I'm now coming there.
It has moved. So don't say there's no way. There are ways.
No, technically, I'm doing the proper way.
Yes.
If it's applied.
Yes, the proper way. So what it means is that these containers moved with the consent of ECG. It could not have moved at the Tema ports without the owner of the container. process.
But isn't that
If
an
it was
ideal
moved
situation?
properly.
I'm coming.
If it was moved properly.
So I'm
You're
coming.
saying that there's no way these containers can move.
I'm coming. When you go to the port,
Yes.
and then Kwesi's car or my car
Yes.
arrives at the
No,
port.
I have not imported any
No
car.
problem.
Yes. Let's get that straight.
So
I've
I
not
get you.
imported
I
any
get you. I
car.
get you. I was just.
Because it's just.
Oh no, it's important that you clarify.
Why doesn't he use his own? Why me?
Maybe, okay, my
Why
car.
not you?
My car.
Okay, so honorable. You have imported your car.
I'm imported right
Your
now.
car has
Or
arrived at the
Annie
port.
has imported his car.
Yeah, Annie has
Why me?
No, please. Annie hasn't imported any car. I beg you.
Listen, what I was excited
Yes,
about
yes.
is the point he made that the managers of these institutions must answer.
No, you're still trying to explain to me
I'm coming.
how this couldn't have happened without the tacit
It's
involvement
not
of
even
ECG
possible.
officials.
Yes. It is confined to ECG. The containers are
And it
confined
couldn't
to
have been
ECG.
stolen from
So when you go to the port,
the ECG.
1,300, I'm sure, you see the way it was packed.
Yes.
The cranes must be moving.
Yes.
The officials at the port, custom officers and everything, must know that there's a crane moving a container to another port or another site within the port to exit.
Well, that's
You
true.
cannot exit the Tema port without a written confirmation or a written authorization to move out. When you buy your car and get to the port, before you even drive your car out, you check. You go to this one particular point, they check all your documentations, it is stamped. You move to another point, it is stamped. These are all checks at the port.
What if all those what if all those officials or officers who are supposed to do this have all been compromised?
Absolutely. That's the point I'm making. I'm saying that this couldn't have happened. It's not magic. It means there are people within ECG, there are people at the port who knew the movement of these containers. And yesterday, I was on another platform with my brother Jinapo on radio. I told him that the minority side on the Energy Committee will give him the full support for him to unravel this mischief. They will give him the full support.
Because quite clearly it's been stolen.
Absolutely. I have not cited the report. Of course, he sanctioned the whole investigation, and the report has been given to him. If he's minded, probably he will share it with the committee for us to look at it. But the things he talked about are strange. ECG, a company like ECG, has a procurement division. They have an estate division. Then from what he's saying, I've not seen the report, you combine the procurement division with the estate division and make the head of the estate division, who has very little knowledge of procurement, the head of that unit.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Doesn't make sense.
That's the point I'm making.
It does28 make sense.
So all the things we are hearing, I told him yesterday that for me, I'm as shocked as he is. Because we're talking 1,328 containers. For them to move from the port and go through all the processes that we go through when you are taking something from the port without the knowledge of anybody, it is just not possible. It is just not possible. So I am with him. That he says he wants to go get a full-scale investigation into the matter. I am with him. If he needs our assistance, we will help him. Because we need to get to the bottom of this matter. I kept saying this, and I've said this here before. ECG is probably the most important arm of the whole power chain.
But it's also poorly run.
But that's, you see, it is the most important arm because it is the only institution that deals directly with the consumer.
You mean interfaces with the consumer?
So they collect the money.
Yes.
So it is how much they collect that the others are paid.
True.
You just imagine, you have 2,000 something containers. Yesterday, listen to Jinapo. It contains transformers, other wires and all that. There are people in this country now who need 1 or 2 transformers. There are areas in this country who need transformers to power their area. To power their area. How these containers can fly from the port when there's customs, there's national security, when you go to the port, national security, customs, GRA, all those institutions. Look at this is how the port works. Look at it. See the way the cranes were carrying the containers. So you are telling me that When the cranes were carrying 1,300 and something containers, the custom officers, all the state officials at the ports did not see this. Nobody saw it. It is just not possible, my brother. So I can assure my brother John that we are with him with the investigations, so that we get to the bottom of this issue. It cannot be the case that something that has been bought with our own money, ECG's money, will just vanish into thin air. It's just not possible.
And I mean, equally,
it's just not possible.
I mean, equally strange, Honorable. It's a situation where whoever must have done this is the person saying that they never knew that they would have been found out. I mean, like Kwesi said, these are not chocolates. These are huge containers, 1,328. At some point, it will be found out. It will be discovered.
I know that the ECG managing director has a limit in terms of contracts. From what you are saying, the value of those containers, $500,000, $1 million,
yes,
goes above the MD. It will obviously go to the board. There should be some minutes, some documents, board meetings that justify even these procurement processes. There should be. And so I'm saying that we are with him. He should go through the full haul and get us a detailed report. Whoever is found culpable in this whole process should not be shielded. Because this is Ghana. This is Ghana. Containers are not bicycles.
When you were deputy minister,
yes,
at the energy ministry, were you aware of these containers? Because as of January, John Jinapo granted some interviews, I think one of which I watched, where he was complaining bitterly about ECG importing these containers, and yet they don't have the finances to clear them at the port. And so they are there, and then they attract demurrage. And yet they continue to import these containers, to add to what has already been stuck or been held up at the port. And he complained that it didn't make sense to him. At the time, he said, well, you don't speak for him. What do you know about these containers when you were deputy minister?
When he first spoke in January, he talked
Yes.
about 2,500.
Yes.
And then when he came to Parliament, I think it was a follow-up question to an earlier question that had been posed to him. And then he made mention of 3,000 containers. Before he came to Parliament, he had gone to the port to ascertain at first hand the number of containers that were there. And if you had the video, the impression was created that he has gone to see the containers. I don't blame him, because probably that was the reports he received. He then commissioned a committee to investigate why we have that much containers at the ports. I think the reports that came to him then suggested that what you were told earlier, that there were 3,000 or 2,005, we have just about 1,000 something left. And that is what he was talking about yesterday when he spoke to the media, when the report was presented to him. But by and large, my brother, 1,328 containers cannot vanish. It cannot. And that is why I say I'm with him. That if he wants to go the full haul, which he says he's going to do, and I'm in full support of, the minority is with him to investigate the whereabouts of these containers. And the culprits should come explain where the containers are.
And whether they're even intact.
Whether they're even intact, we should know. Because the containers were consigned to ECG. If ECG themselves have moved it from the port to one of their warehouses, they should tell us. You get the point I'm making. It cannot vanish into thin air.
Yeah.
It will be extremely strange for 1,000 something containers to move from the port, go through all the processes, move from the port, and not move to the ECG, which is the consignee of the product, to somebody's personal warehouse. And that is where we say we are with him on that. When I was at the ministry, this only got to my attention about the number some few months till we exited.
Yes.
But when I went in the ministry, I was with Petroleum.
Yeah.
It was later on that my boss, Herbert, pushed me to power. It was when I was going through some of the documents, because we had received a lot of requests from members of parliament and other individuals, poles, transformers, and all that. That's what prompted me to find out from the director, power at the ministry, that what do we have? Do we have some transformers in our possession? Don't forget that the ministry also has some procurement that they do, separate from ECG.
Okay. For who? For ECG?
No, the ministry sometimes does because the street lighting and all those things is done by the ministry.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's different.
Okay.
So sometimes when you ask the director, I will tell you that we will contact ECG to find out whether they have some in stock to see whether they can give it to us. So they balance themselves as and when time comes. So I am a little surprised about the sheer number of containers at the port, and I'm told it was even attracting demurrage to a certain level. Because if the items are similar and you've imported, let's say, 10 containers of transformers, you have not applied or you have not used them and you are importing more. Yes, sometimes you have to have some in stock for emergencies, but to have close to about 2,000 containers containing the same amount of materials is a little bit out of place. So I'm saying that yes, we are with him. He should investigate. If he's minded to share the reports with the minority, we'll be prepared to also read through and give our advice. Yesterday, my ranking member called me to see if it is possible, and with their permission, we can also go there and have a look at the items ourselves to ascertain the veracity of all the issues ourselves at the port. And so, yes, looks very, very strange, but the containers cannot be missing.
Okay.
It cannot be missing. We have to find a way of finding the containers.
Okay.